Hello, guys. It's late at night. We're here in the room, but I wanted to make a video, perhaps brief, on Free by Leia EP. I believe that's how it's pronounced. Hopefully, I'm not butchering those three letters of her last name. But Leia EP is an Albanian writer and an academic. I believe she's a professor at the London School of Economics. And her research or field of study concerns socialism, political philosophy, and Marxism. Now, that's not to say that she's a Marxist herself, but after reading this memoir, I you get the feeling that her research, having not gone too in depth in it, but it actually concerns changes in political thought and how they're manifested, and also concerns the perception of freedom, and how important freedom, also how ubiquitous freedom is to all of our political movements. This idea of freedom, yet are we really actually truly free? If every next revolution is promising freedom, now you're going to be free. Now you're going to be free, and that's really what she poses at the end of this narrative. Now, this is a memoir, and she lived in Albania for her childhood, and she managed to get out of that country and do the rest of her studies in Rome, I believe, and then later in London. Now, the first half of the narrative, it's told, it's concerning her childhood, and it's quite colorful, quite innocent, and she really depicts her family members, her mother, her father, and in particular her grandmother, as these very colorful characters, and you really get a sense of who they are. Her father's very much a romantic. He was a romantic. He had these romantic revolutionary ideas. Now, Albania, just a caveat for those who don't know, at this time, in the 70s and 80s, Albania was a socialist country. They very much followed the party line. There's a lot of talk of the party. There's only one party. And as the narrative progresses, as history progresses and unfolds, there start to become more parties, and Albania opens up to global trade and to the West. And this poses a lot of problems for these Albanians who are very used to this life under socialism. And that's why EP writes that this is at the end of history. Child in a country at the end of history. So she herself is both growing up in this world, but her country at the same time is, we can't say it's dying, but it's also growing. It has a change in itself. And these constant political struggles and changes, this is something that EP emphasizes towards the end, that it's constantly a struggle for what we perceive at that moment to be freedom. There's the dichotomy between ideas, how important ideas are, versus actually our actions and what we are actually doing. How influential are ideas to our actions? And I think, I'm not sure really if EP answers that question, but she does. She definitely doesn't neglect the importance of ideas in manifesting actions in this world. Philosophy can bring about change, she believes, political philosophy especially. But this is kind of a perpetual change. But as I mentioned, it's a memoir, but as it progresses later on, Yipi's academic and more scholarly voice becomes more pronounced, and the more innocent voice of her childhood starts to fade away. The first half has this very innocent voice, and it's told in quite a cute way that I quite enjoy. She's quite innocent and quite oblivious of some things that are happening around her. She just takes them for granted. And this obliviousness, it kind of, I myself have reading it through her lens, I fall, we could say, victim to that lens as well. And there are a few sort of slights and surprises that might come about in the narrative. Some things that confused me at first, but then they become resolved a few pages later. You start to know what some things are that certain characters are talking about. I'm not going to go too in depth into that, but there's a lot of coded language, as we know, especially in these communist socialist regimes, which talk about people going to places, people being things. But that's not actually what they are. They're doing something else. Something else is happening to them. But the hallmark for me of a great memoir, a good memoir, is that it has a great supporting cast of characters. And I think that Yipi succeeds with that in her family, her grandmother, who's really portrayed as this woman who kind of goes with the waves, goes through revolutions. She's lived through revolutions and regime changes, and has a sort of, you'd say, a groundedness, a gravitas, but also a very poignant understanding of the reality that she believes she's inhabiting and how she understands this world. As it relates to a historical text in better understanding Albania, I can't say that this book will, it's not too in-depth in regards to the unrest and the troubles that Albania endured from their transition from a one-party socialist state to a multi-party democracy. Obviously, that's one of the main themes. That's the transition. That's the end of history. But Yipi, while she has a bit of a scholarly voice towards the end, it's not. The text is not by any means a scholarly text, in my opinion. It's quite accessible. She doesn't go into the nitty-gritty. She maintains this as a memoir. However, her maturity, I believe that's what kind of starts to progress throughout the narrative. You start to feel the voice becoming more mature. And it made me much more interested in Albanian history, the history of the Balkans, the history of this time period. And there are quite a few books on my TBR as it relates to that, actually. And I should probably get to reading them sometime soon. But I quite enjoyed this memoir. It was quite interesting, and I really think that message of freedom, democracy, these ideals being something that we have to constantly fight for, but at the same time rearrange and reposition what we really think of as free. What really does freedom entail? I think that's the message that Yipi gives to us. But a good memoir, I'd recommend it definitely. Have a read. Take care. Thanks.